We rolling. What's up, everybody? I'm Jacob with Very Good Knife Company. If you're coming back to watch this all over again, welcome in. Today I've got to do a bunch of finish grinding, counter strikes and first strikes. And we're going to start with the counter strikes, flat grinding. And what we're going to do is the bevels. Now, I've already taken the boring part out. That seems to be when people take and drop off when I'm doing the surface grinding. So the surface grinding's already done. They're finished a 400 grit on the sides. And what we've got left to do on all of these knives is the bevels. These guys are finished at 60 grit. You guys watched me do that on yesterday's live streams. And what they need next is a 120. That's what we've got set up on the grinder over here. That's what we're going to do. So let's just roll right into it. Get you guys down just a little. Thank you. Brighten that edge up so I can see. One side. All right. There's one in 120. One side. There's another. Looking nice. Well, it's 2 now. I'll probably get 2 more, and then I'll have to change the belt. Here's what the other side looks like before. About a 60 grit right there. There we go. That makes 3 now. To your 120. Here's what they look like before. Do a 4th one, then I'll probably change the belt. First pass. Not doing a whole lot. Trying to get an idea of where we need to go though. Now I need to raise it. Little at a time. almost there. There's one side. I see a shadow right there. How's that? Much better. Beauty. I'm having to put a little too much effort into that belt now, so let's go ahead and change it. Still getting used to that. Four more. Here's what they look like before. One side. One more. There we go. One side. Here's the side before I do it. One more. There we go. go. Then we'll switch to 220. One side. One more. Here's what it looks like before. go. One and a half. There we go. That looks good. Might have gone up a little higher than the other side. A little higher than, well, they're a little more different than I like them to be, so. That's better. Okie dokie. What's up, everybody? I'm Jacob with Very Good Knife Company, and welcome in if you're new to the channel. So, I'm going to switch belts now to a 220 grit. That right there was a 120 grit and a ceramic belt. So, in that stage, I got my edge thickness where I wanted it on all of those counter strikes. I got my grind height and everything exactly where I wanted it. Now it's time to put the final couple finishes on it. We're going to do a 220 grit and then a 400 grit. So I'm going to slow the belt down even more. Ready? Here's what they look like right now. Look pretty good. All right, there's the 220. Very, very, very clean looking. Just gonna do one side for now. I'm gonna go through 4 of them, then I'll go back and do the other side. Looks pretty nice. Very nice. Hey guys, if you like this content, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up for me if you have not done so already. It really helps me out. Yeehaw. Alright, that's 4. Go back, do the other side. Very nice. One. Now I'm feeling that belt start to wear. We got 2 more bevels to do, just 2 more sides. Should make it. That one went pretty nice. One more. It will change belt. There we go. Looking good. All right, put another 220 grit belt on there. That one's cooked. They don't usually last long, aluminum oxide belts, but they do look nice, or make it look nice, rather. Why are you making so much noise? This one's got a whole bunch of junk on it. Let's see. It's just gonna frustrate me, so it's gonna make it real hard to get the grind really nice just doing that. So let's clean them up just a little. Heck, this one's got it on it too. That last 220 that I just used was from the last box of belts that I got. So different batch, and they were a little better than this. That one wasn't quite as bad as the one I just took off, but should be good now. Much better. See, you're not hearing that clack, 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 clack. Okay, do the same thing. This one's got a bad cup to it. I'm gonna take the crunch out of it. Totally different belts. All right. We'll do all 4 one side at a time. Like that. Go. Well, that one went fast. All right, now we'll go back through. Do the other side. Okay. One. Two. Three. And that one cleaned up fast again. Four. Means my foundation grinds were better. If I have to keep cleaning them, then it may not be as perfect as they looked this stage before. But no worries. We gotta make them look good. All right, we'll slow it down even one more step and do 400 grit now. Hang this belt too. I hear you. There's little drops of glue that have squeezed out. That makes that bumping real bad belt bump. Before I do this, I'm gonna clean my plate up right quick. Got a razor. See all that? What I just scraped off of there is belt thread or backing, and doesn't look like a problem, except if I'm able to scrape it off, then that means it's not flat. So what it'll do is cause high spots in your bevels. I don't want that. This is the part where you're going to see it. As we get up to a finer grit, the belt gets thinner. Sounds much better. Let's see. There we go, final finish. 400 grit. Do one side of 4, then we'll go back through. Very nice. Go. That's 4. Do the other sides now. Very nice. Almost a finished blade there. Nice. Nice. Very nice. All right. That's it for that belt. Let me grab another one. One more 400 grit belt, and these guys will be almost finished. Then we'll have to do the swedges, but we'll do that on the wheel, not on a flat platen. Okie dokie. Got a little bump, not too bad. It's actually really nice looking. Doesn't feel as bad as it sounds. Very nice. Very nice. Goes quick when the belt is new. Four. That looks good. What's up, Steven? Uh-oh. Sorry to hear it. Pretty good looking. One more. Very nice. Voila. So I'm gonna do the counter-strike swedges on the belt, or on the belt, duh, on the wheel over here, because it'll match the curvature of that clip point a little better. So we'll go ahead and do that, and then those blades will be pretty much done. Well, they will be done. Just have to demagnetize them. Start with a 120. Clean up the spine first. Alright. Go over them all. Do the spine first. All we're doing is making them look like this. It did look like this right here. Maybe I can get it to focus. It did look like this. Now it looks like this. This will be a short step. Then we'll start doing the actual swedges. Here we go. See those swedges. See that? Like that. I will step them up. Now we'll step it up. And considering this is such a tiny little space, I'll just go straight from 120 to a 400. I usually don't have a problem doing that, although I'll have to keep it cool. There. Very nice. Thank you. Go. Beautiful. Lost my mojo somewhere. That or my belt lost a whole bunch. I'm leaning towards it for the belt. Stop right there. Change to that other used one. This one's whooped. It's all shiny now. This one's still got a little life in it. Those last two, I really shouldn't have to touch it more than once. And I know that sounds crazy, but once you get like the muscle memory of getting it right, you know, if I get it wrong more than once, every time I peck at it, I'm taking stuff off, and I run the risk of just getting it too hot or getting it off-sided. So it's best that I don't do it more than once. So if I get it wrong, it's time to change belt, or maybe it's time to take a break. It should bite like that and just get clean real fast. I shouldn't be pecking at it like that. Got it. Super clean. Here to go. That was my fault. Pulled away too early. But was able to get right back in it. What's up, Amaya Hernandez? Yep, Mitski. What's up, bud? Good to see you guys. Didn't push hard enough. Yeah. Fantastic. That's it for the counter strikes. Nice to at least be done with those. Now, we're just going to transition. I'm not even going to move away from the machine. The next step for those counter strikes is to get demagnetized. That just takes a couple minutes of standing there. But other than that, they're ready for handles. They look pretty good. So yesterday, they started out looking like, let me grab one. They started out looking like this. Heat treated AEBL, stainless steel, ingot stainless steel. And this is what they looked like yesterday. And now they all look like this. This one would be in there, in that bunch, but it was an extra, and it's warped from here to here pretty badly. So I'll have to spend a little bit of time on that one to get it right. I did not feel like doing that right now. I already had enough, so I just took off running with the 8 that I had. Not all 8 will be dropping. 2 of them are orders, actually. Have been on the order list for quite a while, too. But 6 of them will be dropping. All right, now we've got to finish grind the first strikes. And these guys are not flat ground. These are hollow ground. So I got to say 120 grit belt right here. We're going to jump right into it. To me, they're about the same. AEBL, Nitro V on toughness, they're pretty close to the same. My biggest discrepancy with the AEBL, well, when I dove in with Nitro V for very good, AEBL was kind of sparse because it was really popular three years ago. So at least at the time, I just wasn't able to get what I wanted. So I just went with Nitro V. So to me, they're the same. I heat treat them exactly the same. The only difference is that AEBL does not reach the same level of hardness as Nitro V with the same heat treat. It's just slightly softer. It's about 61 and a half, somewhere in there. Whereas Nitro V is about 62 and a half. With the same heat treat. It's just a little bit different makeup. So AEBL does warp a lot more, and it kind of annoys me, which is another reason why I just didn't want to work with it. But I do like the steel. I have some kitchen knives in AEBL. I really like it for kitchen knives. All right. There's one little string that doesn't want to come off. Well, I'll grind it off. All right, so these guys are pretty close, 60 grit. We're going to take them down to a 120 grit. Working the same way. There's only 6 of these instead of 8, but they are 2 knives apiece, so pretty big. Very nice. had to fix the plunge on that one a little. Very nice. One side, two sides. Now we go do the swedge. Very nice, very nice. Getting clean now. That's one. Little thinner. There we go. Now we gotta do the swedges. one side. Go. That's two. One more. I think I'll change the belt. Plunge clip correction. Much better. Still not perfect, but almost there. So I was messing with the plunge clips quite a bit. Try and get that centered up. Looks good. start backwards on these. This belt has about had it. That's okay, won't ask much more of it. Nice. One side. Perfecto. There we go. Sweet. Alright, so those three are good. Change belt, get three more. we go. One side, swedge, the other side. There we go, there's one. Two to go. So this 120 grit process probably takes more time than all the other finish grinding steps, without a doubt. That's mainly because I'm trying to get it dialed in. 120 is the last ceramic melt that I use. So it's really my last chance to get it right. like that. There we go. One more blade to go. For 120 anyway. Then we'll do the rest of the finish grinding. Alright, one side. Go a little thinner. All right. Looking good. Do the swedges. Excelente. looking pretty sweet. Now we got to do 220 grit. For that, we'll slow the belt speed down. Grab a couple new belts. Not that one. 220 grit. Here we go. What's up, Martin Pepper? All right. I'm going to take the crunch out of this belt. See what that seam feels like when it comes around. Bunch of junk on it. Naturally. All right, here we go. 220. Very nice. Gotta do the swedges. Forgot. Very nice. One more swedge. One more side. Right, there's 1 to 220. One side. nice. One more side to do. Wait. One more, then we'll change belts once again. Do another 220 for those last three. Let's put us another new 120 or new 220 grit on, and then we're ready for the final grit, which is 400. The mist is still around. Can you tell Remington to go get my chair? Pretty please. It's raining. I don't want it to get soaking wet again. All right. So the difference between 120 or 220s right here and 120s right here. The difference is not a whole bunch. It's mostly just in feel right now. But the difference between 400 and 120 is quite a lot, which we'll see in the end. But we got 3 more to get through 220. Nice. One more side. All right. One. Hey Greg, how's it going, bud? Grippex is, well, I wouldn't say it's easier or harder, it's just different. I will say that it's twice as messy, which drives me insane. I do have to blast Grippex in order to get the feel that I want, but I don't have to blast my carton to get the feel that I want. Nice. Nice. One more. Super nice looking. Nice. Swedges. Sweet. Almost done. Alright, I'm going to hit all these edges with the 220. Just make sure that we're all nice and uniform. Really brightens them up so I can see them well. See how even they are? That looks pretty good. Long hollow grinds are challenging to get even thickness. So, and it's hard to tell until you scrub that edge with each next grit belt. These look really good. One more. Then we'll switch to 400. Finish these blades out. Super nice. These are looking great. We have just 2 more belt changes on our schedule here now. And I only have 1 belt, so I'm gonna have to go and dig some more belts out. All right. I'm gonna break the crunch out of this one. Perfect. All right. Here we go, last step. Really like to get all these in about 2 passes. Or 3.5. There we go. Super, super clean. All right. So I have to slack the belt off to one side or the other to get the swedges. That way I have that faded plunge right there. I'm going to do all the bevels, the main bevels first, and then I'll go back and do all the swedges with the 400. What ends up happening is when I slack that belt off, I get a buildup, end up wearing one spot on the belt off. Best if I save that step for last. Nice. Beautiful. One more. Nice. You may not be able to see it, but, well, you can see it. See it right there? I gotta get that out. There we go. It's gone. Very nice. Alright, now we'll go back. Get those swedges now. Excelente. Finish. One finished blade. We'll get those smudges and stuff off later. Ready for handles though. Just a few more to get through. There we go. There's one little booger right there on the end. See if I can get that out. And I did. There we go. Nice and clean. One more set of swedges to get. There we go. One more side. Excelente. There we go. 3 more blades. Alright, I gotta go fishing. Right quick and find that 400 grit belt. Give me a second. No. There we go. Gotcha. Be right back. Okay. Got us some more 400 grit belts. Three to go. What's up, Scotland? Do the same thing. Bevel first, then swedges. Pretty nice. Very nice. Sweet. Alright, swedges. Super nice. Perfect. One more. Oops, I forgot to get that little edge. There we go. Alright, last one. Check it out. So, now we've just got to go and demagnetize all these, and they're ready to go to the bench and get put together, get built with handles on them. And we'll start that process tomorrow. Right now, I've got to make sure that they're demagnetized, because what happens is I kind of forget to do it sometimes, and you don't notice until you get all the way down to sharpening, where you get back to that super fine, powdery shavings that come off of there. Holy cow. I've forgotten to scoop up all of my foil packets from heat treating. All right, so right now, all these blades are magnetized, and that's because over there on the surface grinder, we have a magnetic chuck that holds all the blades on to get them nice and super nice and shiny, clean, 400 grit finish. What happens is they're magnetized now because they were put on that magnet chuck. So just run this across the bench. See all that junk, that metal dust? What's up, Tyler Meds? Good to see you, bud. Good to hear it. So we're going to take all of that and get rid of it. See, it took it all off. It's no longer magnetized. I'm going to go over the whole thing, though. All right, guys. If anybody's got any questions, definitely shoot them into the comment section right there, because I am no longer on the grinder. I'm done with the grinder for now, and I can answer some questions. So these are first strikes and counter strikes in Nitro V stainless and AEBL stainless. I have 4 first strikes that will be dropping this week, along with 6 counter strikes. And then the other 4 knives that we have here, there's 2 extra first strikes and 2 extra counter strikes. Those are all orders. One of them belongs to you, Tyler. These knives right here, the AEBL counter strikes will be $280, and then the first strikes will be $350 or $360. All right, 3. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes there's nothing I can do about it. But for the most part, they won't be scratching like right off the rip. But my sheaths do have pretty good sized drain holes, and you can wash them out. I do make sure that there is plenty of space around the blade to try and prevent scratches from happening, because that frustrates me too. The first strike sheaths were actually one of the most challenging sheaths that I've made, and I did finally conquer the first strike sheath. One of my biggest issues with the sheath was that even though I would get the sheath right, it always needed a bunch of adjustment after molding, and I was molding them each individually to the knife. I don't do that with anything else. So So I did finally make a proper, really good working mold for the first strike sheets, and they are fantastic, I will say that. They have a whole ton of extra space around the blade. Which is what I wanted for the first strike. That was probably the worst fitting, or not the worst fitting, the worst about scratching the blades was all the first strike sheets. And they still will. There's nothing you can do about it. But like I said, like right new out of the box, as long as there's nothing in the sheath, which when I clean them, there's nothing in the sheath, they won't scratch at all. There's plenty of space. I'm dreading making sheaths now that I'm thinking about it. Counter-strike sheaths are easy. Those are all getting taco sheaths. And those are also a no-adjust sheath. I don't even do thumb ramps on those because they mold one in naturally on their own. It's pretty cool. No, I don't take blades. I don't mold sheaths individually. All these blades are pretty close to the same. They're not water jet cut or laser cut or anything, but they're close enough to as precise. They're all hand blanked. But I use molds. When I get done doing these blades, I got 5 more here. I'll show you the molds that I use and how they work. It's pretty cool. These counter strikes are super sweet. I am eventually going to do some hollow ground counter strikes as well, because the first strike is a hollow grind. And I do also do high saber flat grinds and full flat grinds for the first strike, but this run they're all just a regular old hollow grind, which I like. 3 more. I need to do a rope cut with the first strike, don't I? I did a rope cut with the counter strike a while back, but and that was the big rope with this short blade, 4-inch blade, and so 5/8 or 7/8 sisal rope, 3/4 sisal rope. It's pretty big for a 4-inch blade. Need to do one with the first strike. I do make some tanto blades. Well, just one model. It's called the Roughneck. It is a compound grind, flat grind on the front bevel, and hollow for the primary bevel. I have one on my bench in there. I'll show you in just a second. This is my last counter strike to demagnetize, and we're done. All right, so give me just a second. Let me go put all these on the bench over here and get them soaked in oil. Let's just get them put in oil. Even though they're all stainless, what I don't want is anything on the surface like dust around the shop, starting that rust process. So, and that's where it usually starts, is on the surface. Can you let go? There we go. All right, let's get all these laid out and put some oil on them. Just WD-40. And what this does for the most part is just get up underneath all the junk on the surface and lifts it off. It does less for protection than it does for cleaning. But it does give a little layer of protection. This can's about gone. I'm having to hold it straight up, which is quite unproductive. almost done. Let's get these counter strikes out. About empty too. That one too. That one is empty. How did I do that? Let's see. Let's see one sitting over here. Ha! That one's full. That's more like it. So these guys will sit here in this oil for the night. And then tomorrow, when I get back to them to do the handles, I'll clean them up real good. Take some alcohol to the tang so I can then do my thing with them. All right, there we go. So, in a couple of days, we've gotten all those blades ground. And it doesn't seem like a lot, but the counter strikes are a 4-inch blade, which is bigger than what I'm usually doing. 3.5, 2 3/4, you know, wasp size, tradition junior size. I mean, this is pretty common size around here, so the counter strikes are definitely a little bigger. And the first strikes, I mean, there's two blades in each one of these blades. They're pretty big, especially for hollow grinding. They're pretty big, but you know, still a small knife. All right, so somebody was asking me about sheaths earlier and tanto knives. Yeah, here's a tanto that this is just my Kydex cutter, and it does not have an edge down here. That's so I don't cut myself, because I use the blade like this all the time. It is only edged up front. And it is very, very, very worn. It used to be a lot different looking. But there it is. So anyway, this right here is what the counter strike sheaths look like once they've been molded. Kind of goofy looking, but you'd have to see the end result. This is a tradition sheath. This is a heritage sheath that's been molded. But I do all that with molds. I don't do individual sheaths if I can absolutely help it, because I can't stand doing that. It drives me crazy. Considering that they are, no, that's not the test knife, but that is the brother to the test knife, because I have the test knife at home. It's still prettier than that one. Anyway, this is the heritage mold, and you can see one thing that I focused on here is that negative space right here behind the finger choil. That is one of the biggest issues with Kydex. So I eliminated that entirely by making this the same stock as the blade. And of course, it's not been surface ground. It's not been ground down at all. So it's going to be thicker naturally. And then some of them I actually put extra tape on to thicken it up even more. Like these guys. So every single one of these molds, I have a whole box full of them. Every single one of these molds have a 3/4 inch spaced hole on the back. And that's for my master handles. My master handles, I have 3 of these master handles and 3 taco presses over there. These are all taco molds. They've got, you can see they've got a drain hole already there. They've got, the handles are pretty much the same, except just a little bit of modification to make them fit a little better. And then of course, we're molding in, bridging that gap for the finger choil. But the master handles all bolt on to the molds. That way I didn't have the molds have to make the molds too long. It was just an excess and a waste. So I just made a master handle. I've got a few of them. Here's another. This is what they look like, and they bolt into all of the molds. Every mold here can accept the master handles. So here's a hawk, and then here's the first strike mold. So I do usually put the master handle on, even though I don't make taco molds. I do still put the master handle on because it's easier to kind of move around. But this guy, I do pancake sheaths with, and this is the pancake press here. And that goes in there. This just bolts down. You can put it's got a really long bar on it, so you can put a whole bunch of weight on it and get a lot of leverage. And then we just flip these keepers up. These keepers can be tightened. It's just threaded rod. I made all this. Anyway, this is a first strike mold, and it's got a lot of extra tape in here to keep the spine clean and clear. Got the drain hole in there, but then I actually, in order to keep the blades from scratching, because the first strikes, again, those first strikes were the hardest ones to keep from scratching for whatever reason. Honestly, I think it's just the pancake sheath is the biggest problem there. But these do not make good taco sheaths at all. Anyway, the bar down the middle, that rib, it's just a piece of micarta on both sides. That is there to mold a rib into the sheath. There's another company that is no longer existent that used to do the same kind of thing. It adds a whole bunch of space around the blade, but I wouldn't say that it makes much of a difference other than that. Just adding a bunch of space around the blade. It does add rigidity. That rib adds a lot of rigidity, and the sheaths don't compress or squeeze together as easily. I'm trying to find the first strike, or the counter strike mold. So there's the Lone Star mold. Where are you at? There it is. All right, there's the counter strike mold, and that's what it looks like. And these actually fit amazingly, with almost zero or zero adjustment necessary at all. That's what it looks like. And so what I do is I'll end up popping a piece of Kydex in the oven here. There's a cookie sheet in there on a rack. Once it's hot, I'll pull it out and use the taco presses here. So these taco presses are pretty simple. It's just a single piece of foam that's been folded, and we've got hinges and big giant plates. That's all they are. I've got 3 of them, and I did do a screw style press for them. It works really good, but I kind of just like the good old-fashioned clamps. They don't bother me at all. I did the screw style press so the missus could help me because she just wasn't quite strong enough, like hand-wise, to get these closed as tight as they needed to be. But I got some different clamps, and they actually work a lot better than what I was using. So I kind of ditched the screw style. Plus, it takes the drill. Anyway, this is the mold, and once we get that piece of Kydex out, we'll just lay it right on top. And then I will take this mold and shove it down through the Kydex, making sure that it stays down in there. And then we'll just clamp it down. Pretty simple. I mean, really is about as simple as it gets. And then when they come out, they will look just like this. that's what it's going to look like once it comes out. And I'll put the excess in between a couple of cold aluminum plates. That way it cools off and stays straight. Sometimes the excess Kydex will want to like sag off to one side or the other, or sometimes it'll kind of do the wiggle. I don't like it to do that, so I just put it in between some cold aluminum plates, and that makes sure that it cools super straight. And then I just usually that hot Kydex is stuck together in between here. I'll just take my I've got these all over the shop. I'll just stick it down in there and give it a strip, and it'll split apart. That's what we're left with. And after this, then we'll just take it to the bench here, and I have this tool right here that has the spacing that I want for my taco sheaths. It's 5 different marks at a 1/2 inch spacing, and I like 1/2 inch spacing because you can still use 1.5 inches in place for the attachments that are 3/4 inch spaced. So like a Tech-Lock large, you can still use the Tech-Lock large on the 1.5 inch spacing. It would just take the 2 widest holes instead of the outside and inside hole. But it can also fit really close attachments like the Ulti-Clip and give you a lot of adjustment. And it can also fit like Tech-Lock small or anything else with a 1/2 inch spacing. So that's what I like about the 1/2 inch spacing. Where are we at? All right, and then I have a bunch of wings dividers that are set up on, this is a 1/2 inch space. I've got one that's a 1 inch. I've got one that's a 3/4 inch. I use this one to mark the big sheaths. I do like 3/4 inch spacing on the big sheaths. But for sheaths that take 1 extra eyelet down, that would be just for a longer blade, I just take the dot punch and go ahead and mark it, and then I will take that last hole and use the wing divider to mark one more spot, because I don't want it to separate. And I'll just give them a little pop with the scribe, and that makes the holes nice and open and clean. That right there is going to be the end of that. Now we go to the drill press. We'll drill all those holes out and then put in our eyelets with that press right there. That press crimps eyelets, and then they look like this. That's what they look like. Once they get into that stage, then we take it to the bandsaw. We'll take the bandsaw and cut all that excess off, and then to the grinder, grind the sheath. It takes about 1.5 minutes to finish a sheath out once it's to that point. It's that fast. But I mean, you gotta think, all you gotta do is cut the shape around the eyelets and then up top. So after that, we just hit it with the Scotch-Brite. Again, the whole process takes about 1.5 minutes to take the sheath from an eyeletted sheath to a ready for a thumb ramp sheath. And the only thing I do for the thumb ramps is use the heat gun. I use the heat gun, and then I'll heat the back up, and I'll just pull it out with my finger. That's all I do. And then it's a finished sheath. So the process is really, really simple. And I've got a lot of shortcuts to help me do it even faster. So there's a bunch of dust kind of floating around in the air, so as not to collect all that on top of these oily blades, I will tuck them into bed for the night and call it good until the morning. For the rest of the day, I have got to get these 4 blades profiled, and then I've got 2 more blades to go with them that I need to get ground and ready for. Absolutely, bud. Thanks for sticking around. I need to get these are all ADCRV2 blades. I really need to get these into the kiln for heat treat. It's not gonna happen today. It's already 4:30. But I can, however, get them ready for thanks, John. Good to see you, bud. John is my biggest supporter. Without a doubt, he is my #1 supporter, and he makes Very Good Knife Company possible in ways you guys would never imagine. So thank you, Grinch. I've just got 2 adventures in 5:30 seconds. I've got a tradition, and then I've got a lineman and 2 wasps. All of them but 2 in this rack are orders. So 4 of the 6 here are orders. The rest of them are just, there's 2 extras in here. But I need to get them through these next couple stages. So if you guys want to stick around for that, I'll be getting started on that right exactly now. Because we're already live, why not? Just roll. I'm going to get rid of the free platen and put the rest platen on. And then we'll move all these over to here. Grab me one of these used up 60 grit belts. These are perfect for profiling. I think they are perfect for profiling. 60 grit cuts a lot cleaner than the 36, and it still cuts just as fast. All right. Put my mask, my glasses, and my ear protection on right quick. And we'll get cracking. Alright, 2 of you don't belong here. You just go sit down. Here we go. Alright. There we go. There's a lineman. adventure. Couple more. One. All right, now we're gonna go over to the wire wheel, because all of these now have like a super hard burr on them, and I don't want that. So I'm just gonna wire wheel them clean. There. Now it's nice and clean. Get that side real good, because I'm about to lay out dye these. Right. Just like that. Two more. go. Another venture. And alignment. There we go. Right. Let's go over here to the bench. Put some layout dye on these. Now the other two I have over here are already dyed. I did that earlier. And so what we got to do is put some dye on here so we can mark our grinding lines. So the Adventure gets a full flat grind. We don't need side grinding lines on it. The grinding lines are the spine. We're going all the way up and just trying not to break through at the ricasso there. So we've just got the center or the spine or the edge spine marked. See, now the tradition is going to get a hollow grind. We're not going to go all the way up with it, so we need to mark some reference lines. I have one more adventure here, and we'll go ahead and run a little bead of blue on there. This is the prettiest blue. Let that dry. Get the lineman, and go ahead and get the side of it, because it's going to get hollow ground as well. Wasps. Go ahead and coat them real good. There we go. And that tradition is done. All right. So now, slide these up. Now, while those are sitting there drying, we'll just go ahead and go do the adventures. The only two flat grinds that we've got here, so we'll just go ahead and go get them out of the way. That 60 grit belt I have on there should suffice, because these are unheat treated. Soft steel. We're going to grind them before heat treat. This is a carbon steel. We can use that differential heat treating method to our advantage. All right, we've got our line scribed in there. Now we'll go to the grinder. See how long we can work on this wore out 60 grit. One side. These are not heat treated. We're doing pre-heat treat grinding. Yeah, no, these are not heat treated. You'd be 100% right. I'd burn the shit out of them, ruin the heat treat. But no, we're doing pre-heat treat grinding on these ones. And, but these are carbon steel. Yeah, definitely too much heat for a heat treat. But these guys are about to get burned up anyways in the forge, or in the kiln, so it doesn't matter. They're okay. I don't really care how hot they get. I mean, I don't try to melt them, but before heat treat on the carbon steel, yeah, I don't care. I'll use wore out belts and get a buff out. I like to do 120 grit. Now it's ready to go heat treat. All right. So, these two are ready for the forge now, or the kiln. Why do I keep saying forge? My goodness. I don't have a forge. I don't even have a forge. I do have a forge. That's a lie. I have a one burner forge. So these guys are ready for heat treat now. Down to a 120 grit finish. And, well, those sit there and chill for a minute. I'm going to mark up these other ones, and then we'll go hollow grind them. That'll go pretty quick. So we have two of them in 165 stock, and then two more in 125 stock, or 1/8 inch and 5/32. And all of these next four are going to get hollow ground. And again, these are just unheat treated blades. They just came out of bar stock, and we just profiled them, and now we're going to do the pre-heat treat grind. Now, I do not pre-heat treat grind anything other than carbon steel. Everything else, where's my other one? There. Everything else gets ground all after heat treat. And if you guys want to see some post-heat treat grinding, you can go back and watch yesterday's live streams, because I did all those counter strikes and first strikes that we just finished up earlier on yesterday's live stream. And those are heat treated blades. You'll see, they take me forever compared to those two adventures that I just ground. That was nice. I wish everything ground like that, even heat treated. I'd be cheating, huh? Alright. These guys are all marked up. Let's go hollow grind these. None of it's really that set. I'm really just worried about getting close to that center line. And I do most all of it by eyeball, but again, if you go back and watch some live streams of mine, you'll see that my eyeballs are pretty trained on their visual reading of thousandths. Pretty calibrated, but I like to leave about 25 to 30 thousandths for heat treat. Thicker if it's a thicker blade. That's enough. The center lines, though, scribing the center lines on them usually leaves about 40 thousandths in between the lines. It's kind of hard to tell. But again, I really just don't, I only use those until the lines disappear. Once I've gotten through them, then it's all by eye. Here we go. Oh, where do I grab that one? Come on. One side. backwards grind. This is nothing. It's the love that is all that I want to I got started on. now, going to swap out to a 120 grit and hit them one more time. Get them nice and cleaned up.